Alright, here we go. Here's the 5060. We're going to unbox it right here. This is the low profile one. And it's going to be going into the Xbox to replace the 4060. But let's see what this looks like on the first open. And there it is. Size difference, it looks no different from the 4060. Still got our single 8-pin connector, 3 fans, low profile, 3 display ports, HDMI. Alright, now let's open up the Xbox and replace the 4060 with the 5060. Alright, here's the Xbox. I already pulled the 4 screws out, so we just pull the lid right off. And here is the 4060. Alright, I undid my retention brackets and my display cable. Now I can pull the GPU out. And unplug the 8-pin. There it is. There's the 4060. Now looking at the two cards, there's very little difference. The shroud has a slightly different design, but overall it looks like it's the same fans, different sticker. The cooler is the same cooler, it looks like. On the back side, this is the 4060, has a lot more going on. This is the 5060. The heat piping is slightly different. The 4060 has that one pipe rounding out, and the 5060 has just 2 ends of the heat pipe sticking out. Not a whole lot of difference. Overall, it is the same dimensions and everything. Here we go, the 5060 is in. My retentions are back in place. Another thing I noticed was where the PCIe power connector is. On the 5060, it's pushed out just ever so slightly, just by like a couple millimeters. And it was actually clipping the corner of this fan right here. So I actually just had to just clip off a corner of that fan in order for it to clear. Other than that, it is back in, ready to go. Now I'll fire up some benchmarks and show you the difference between benchmarking the 4060 LP and the 5060 LP. We'll see how they compare against each other.
The GPU info is from techpowerup.com. I'm not going to bore you talking about each of the specs, so pause the video if you want to see something specific. On paper, the 5060 should lead about 22% over the 4060. I tested both cards at 1080 and 1440p, high settings, no DLS or frame gen. I also recorded from both GPUs, which seems to take a massive hit of performance on both. Alright, now let's get into some benchmarks. In 3D Mark's Time Spy, the 5060 gave about 17% uplift in total score and 20% uplift in the graphics score. So far, we're off to a good start. In Black Myth Wukong in 1080p, the 5060 gained 33% over the 4060, and at 1440p, it gained 22%. In Black Ops 6 1080p, the 5060 gained 15% and 21% in 1440p. However, neither GPU seemed to enjoy 1440p and recording at the same time. 8 GB just isn't enough, NVIDIA. Cyberpunk 2077 5060 put up 33% in 1080p over the 4060 and 27% in 1440p. Not too bad for the new GPU. In F125, the 5060 was 19% better in 1080p and achieved a pretty big uplift of 29% in 1440p over the 4060. In Rainbow Six Siege, the 5060 gave a barely noticeable 3% uplift in performance in 1080p and 15% in 1440p over the 4060. In the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remaster, the 5060 at 17% in 1080p and 7% in 1440p over the 4060. However, both GPUs ran this game really terrible, and if you have one of these GPUs, you'll probably really have to dial in the settings just to get a playable experience out of this game.
The enemy has captured objective Bravo 2. We've secured sector Charlie.
In Delta Force, we're going to call this one a wash due to the graphics cards being ran on different maps here. However, both GPUs provided an excellent playing experience, and if you even modified the graphics presets, you can even achieve higher frame rates. In Splitgate 2, this was an interesting one. It was 13% in favor of the 4060 at 1080p, but 7% in favor of the 5060 at 1440p. I'm not sure if this is because it's a new game and the drivers aren't quite there yet for the 50 series cards. Either way, both GPUs gave a great playing experience on this game.
Ahead, try to stop them. Great hit.
Power weapon inbound.
They're pulling ahead, try to stop them.
Double kill.
Key takeaways from upgrading from a 4060 to a 5060. 1. 8 gigs of VRAM is not enough. Number 2. The 5060 even drew more power than the 4060. So much for being more efficient. And I bet if you threw an overclock on that 4060, you'd probably reach 5060 levels or higher. Number 3. If you're looking to stream or record on either of these GPUs, I recommend looking for something else. The workload is just too taxing on these cards. Number 4. I understand why 8 gigs of VRAM is enough. NVIDIA dumps so much money into research and development, marketing, into DLSS and frame generation that at the low end of GPUs that you can make an 8GB card run like a native 16GB card, even if it is just fake frames, the average person won't even notice. Number 5, to get the most out of these 5060 cards, you'll need to run at PCIe Gen 5. This Xbox is running at Gen 4 with an 11600KF DDR4 memory, and if we bump that into Gen 5 with DDR5 and a better CPU, I'm sure the 5060 would pull another 5-10% across the board. Alright, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the upgrade from 4060 to 5060. Hopefully you'll stay tuned for something else.